This stage, we'll bring in John O'Connell, who's General Secretary of the Financial Services Union. John, you heard there Bobby O'Connell, he spoke, as did Shane McElroy of Clorglan Chamber Alliance, about the impact, the positive impact the branches have had in their towns, in their communities, and in particular the contribution by staff. What's your reaction to that, first of all? It just shows that bank staff on the ground, the huge contribution they have made to towns, to villages, to communities for many, many decades.
Without a doubt, and Culture Board, which has been set up to improve the culture of the banks, has done a number of surveys, and that has shown time and again that customers and communities really respect the local people working in the banks, but there's still huge trust issues with the main banks at a corporate level. And you can see from this decision today that people are quite justified to have that lack of trust. I'm looking down the list, Tressa, of all the branches that are going to close today. Decent people contributing to their communities, and in terms of the impact and the loss in terms of those communities, we know from studies that have been done in the UK that when a branch closes, that lending to the community drops by up to 64%. And in some of these branches, they're last in town branches. And I think that's where I think our focus should be, and I'd agree with the contributors on the call. It's about looking forward. And I think where we need to look to is the regulation, because we're now down to almost a duopoly. Three banks are now in effect our banking system. And the regulation that ran those banks when there was 12 and 14 and 16 different competitors needs to be different. So I think the Consumer Protection Code, which is the mechanism by which banks close branches, needs to be very, very quickly updated. You know, it's out of date, and I think the Central Bank are out of touch because they didn't even meet with Bank of Ireland when Bank of Ireland announced these closures. They didn't see it as being part of their remit. And their central remit, as well as a stable banking system, is the protection of consumers. And the other thing I would say is, in terms of the options being given to people, the telephony system has been restricted to a 9 to 5 service during COVID, and that needs to be restored. Because in a lot of the towns that I'm looking at today, and I spent my holidays in Kerry again this year, broadband is a challenge for people. And so to say to people, look, the branch is closing, but you can go online, isn't always an option, and certainly isn't an option for people in business who need instant access to finance.
And what will happen to the staff who are working in the 88 branches that are closing today?
Well, fortunately, they're members of the trade union, and we have represented them during, I suppose, their careers, and they've been given options. So nobody has been made compulsorily redundant. So they're given the option of a voluntary redundancy package, a transfer to another location, and some staff have the option of working from home. So in terms of, we're talking about overall in the reduction in headcount in Bank of Ireland, in the totality of what they've done in their transformation programme, we're talking about 1,500 people will be losing their jobs or leaving their jobs as a result. A couple of hundred of those are in the branch network.
John O'Connell of the Financial Services Union we're speaking to there, along with Shane McElroy of Clorglan Chamber Alliance and Councillor Bobby O'Connell from Castle Island. But I'll come back briefly to John O'Connell from the Financial Services Union. John, would you give any credit to Bank of Ireland for the fact that they're not leaving customers high and dry? They've ensured that there's an on-post partnership available which will allow Bank of Ireland customers in the 88 branches that are closing, they'll be able to go into their local post office, they'll be able to do counter cash withdrawals and cash check lodgements from their local post office, exactly as if they were going into their old Bank of Ireland branch.
Yes, in terms of people now will have access to the post office, which is fine, Tressa, for transactional things that we do in our banking. But usually when I visit a bank branch, I'm dealing with substantial life matters, car loans, mortgages, these kind of financial transactions. You won't be able to do any of those in the post office. And there's also this challenge that a number of voluntary organisations have raised, including Community Watch, which is this now is going to lead back to a situation of people being put in a position of having to hoard cash because they'll have to go and get their cash and they operate on a cash basis. Not everybody is either digitally literate to the extent that they can do all their banking on their phone or on their computer. And a lot of people still rely on cash to do their day-to-day transactions. So while it's great for government to be telling us, and I heard just before as I came on the programme about macroeconomic matters and tax rates and corporate tax rates and so forth, we live our lives on a day-to-day basis. And it's really, really important that people have access to cash, and that's part of what we're calling for today, the central bank to enter into a consultation process so that people can still retain access to cash, because at all these branches, the ATM has been removed as well.
And the government was a very large stakeholder in Bank of Ireland after the economic crash in 2008. Now they've sold a lot of that, and they're down to about a fifth of its shareholding. They still have a stake of just below 11% of Bank of Ireland. Do you think the government could have done more? It could have said, we, as stakeholders in Bank of Ireland, do not support the closure of these 88 branches?
I think what the bank or what the government are doing is to be welcomed, and that's that they have come on board from the Taoiseach down to support the setting up a banking forum, and that's also going to be mirrored in Northern Ireland, where a banking forum is going to be set up there. So the purpose of the banking forum is for us, the Castle Islands, the Killorgans, the Trelease of this world, the staff, the communities, to have an input into what type of banking system we want going forward, and not just to leave it to the bankers. Today is what happens when you leave banking just to the bankers. The tracking mortgage issue is when you leave banking to the bankers. There needs to be much better regulation to protect communities, to give communities the level of service that they want, and there must be forward thinking in terms of that. We're not the most advanced digital country in the world. In fact, in Europe, we're in the fourth quartile. But that's not to say that we can't get there, but we need to bring people with us. I see telephony companies spending millions of pounds on digital literacy for their customers. The banks have to do likewise. And the regulator is the person or the entity that needs to drive that.
Thank you, John O'Connell, General Secretary of Financial Services Union.